The veteran soldier named Jake Collins had seen enough war to last 10 lifetimes, but nothing prepared him for what he found in the burning wreckage of the alien ship that crashed near his remote mountain cabin on Earth. 4 small figures huddled together in the smoking debris, and when he pulled them free, he realized they were not human at all, but something far more extraordinary. The oldest one, who called herself Luna, had scales that shimmered like moonlight, and her 3 younger sisters, Ruby with crimson scales, Amber with golden ones, and little Violet with deep purple markings, clung to her desperately. They were dragon girls from a distant world, and their ship had been attacked while fleeing from something terrible. Jake carried them to his cabin one by one because they were injured and terrified and spoke in a language he did not understand at first, but fear was universal, and so was kindness. Over the following days, Jake cleaned their wounds and fed them simple food, and slowly they began to trust him. Luna, who appeared to be around 16 in human years, began learning his language with surprising speed, and soon she could translate for her sisters. They told him their story in broken sentences mixed with tears. Mother was the empress of their world, a massive dragon queen who ruled with absolute power and cruelty. She had arranged marriages for all of them to other dragon lords who were old and brutal, and when Luna refused on behalf of herself and her sisters, the Empress had ordered their execution. They had stolen a small ship and fled across the galaxy with Imperial hunters chasing them until finally their vessel gave out above this blue and green world. Jake listened and felt his old protective instincts kick in. He had retired from military service 5 years ago after losing his entire squad in an ambush, and had come to these mountains to escape humanity. But now he found himself with 4 alien children who needed him. The girls slowly adapted to life in the cabin. Ruby, who was 13, loved to help Jake chop wood even though she was still too weak and often just made a game of stacking the pieces. Amber, who was 11, became fascinated with his old books and would sit by the fireplace sounding out words in English. Little Violet, who could not have been more than 8, followed Jake everywhere like a shadow and had taken to calling him something in her language that Luna translated as protector. Father. Weeks turned into months, and the girls healed both physically and emotionally. Luna grew strong enough to practice her dragon form in the clearing behind the cabin, and as cabin Jake watched in awe as she shifted into an elegant serpentine creature with silver wings. She was still young and small by dragon standards, but she was magnificent. Ruby and Amber soon followed, showing their own transformations, though they tired quickly. Only Violet remained too frightened to change, telling Luna she did not want to be a dragon anymore because dragons were scary. Jake understood trauma when he saw it. Life became peaceful in a way Jake had not experienced since before the wars. He taught the girls how to survive in the wilderness, how to fish in the nearby stream, and how to identify plants. They taught him their language and their customs and filled his lonely cabin with laughter and warmth. But peace never lasted. 6 months after the crash, Jake was returning from the town below with supplies when he saw her. The sky had turned dark with her shadow. She was colossal beyond imagination, a dragon the size of a warship with scales like black diamonds and eyes that burned with fury. The Empress had found them. Jake dropped his supplies and ran toward the cabin, his heart pounding because he knew what was coming. The Dragon Queen landed in the clearing with such force that trees bent and broke around her. Her voice boomed across the mountains, speaking in the dragon tongue, but Jake understood the rage in every syllable. Luna and her sisters came running out of the cabin and froze when they saw their mother. The Empress began to shift, shrinking down into a humanoid form that still towered over Jake at nearly 8 feet tall. She wore armor made of her own scales, and her face was beautiful and terrible. She demanded her daughters return immediately and spoke of punishment and duty and honor. Luna stepped forward, trembling but defiant, and told her mother they would never go back. The Empress raised her hand, and Jake saw energy crackling around her fingers, preparing to strike her own daughter. He did not think Jake stepped between them with nothing but his old service. Pistol drawn, knowing full well it would do nothing against a creature who could survive in space, but he stood there anyway because that was what he did. He protected people who could not protect themselves. Empress stared at him and for the first time seemed to truly notice the human. She asked Luna in a voice like grinding stone who this insignificant creature was. Luna answered in a clear voice that Jake had saved them, that he had sheltered them and fed them and asked nothing in return, and that he had shown them more love in 6 months than their mother had in their entire lives. The clearing fell silent. The Empress studied Jake with eyes that had seen 1,000 worlds conquered, and then she looked at her daughters, really looked at them. She saw how they stood close to the human, how even little Violet peeked out from behind his legs. She saw how Ruby and Amber had positioned themselves ready to defend him despite their fear. Her expression shifted and something ancient and painful crossed her face. She asked Luna if they were truly happy here on this primitive world with this fragile being. Luna nodded and her sisters echoed her. The Empress was quiet for a long time and then she did something Jake never expected. She knelt. The mighty Dragon Queen who ruled a galactic empire knelt in the dirt and looked at her daughters and asked them to forgive her. She spoke of how she had been raised in cruelty and had known nothing else, and how she had believed strength was all that mattered, but seeing them alive and free and happy had broken something in her ancient heart. She told them she would not force them to return, but asked if she might be allowed to try again to be the mother they deserved. Luna looked back at Jake and he gave her a small nod because this was not his choice to make. The eldest daughter turned to her mother and said they would try, but only here on Earth where they felt safe, and only if Jake agreed to let them stay. The Empress turned to Jake and for the first time spoke to him directly in accented English, asking the human warrior if he would grant her this chance. Jake looked at the 4 girls who had become his family and then at their mother, who despite her power looked strangely vulnerable in that moment. He said yes, but added that if she ever hurt them again, he would find a way to make her regret it, emperor or not. The Dragon Queen smiled a sad ancient smile and agreed. She transformed back into her massive dragon form, but this time she settled gently in the clearing and lowered her head as her daughters cautiously approached. Violet was the last, moving slowly until she reached out and touched her mother's scales. Empress made a sound like a purr that shook the ground. Jake watched as the dragon family began to heal, and he realized his lonely mountain refuge had become something he never expected. It had become a home the empire would survive without its ruler for a while, and perhaps they would all learn what it meant to be more than warriors and empresses. They would learn to be a family, and Jake Collins, the retired soldier who thought his days of protecting others were over, found himself with the strangest and most precious family in the galaxy.